The wind at 14,000 feet doesn't ask permission. It cuts through Kevlar like broken glass, through bone like memory, through hope, like a bullet that's already left the barrel. Kira Brennan pressed her eye against the spotting scope and watched her life narrow to a single point of light. 25 Taliban fighters, 800 yards down the mountain slope, 7 American operators pinned between granite and gunfire, 3 wounded, all dying. The math was simple, brutal, final. Without a miracle in the next 60 seconds, everyone on this mountain would be dead. The miracle lay beside her in the dirt, 5 feet 3 inches, 118 pounds. A sniper rifle that looked absurd against her small frame, and a right hand that shouldn't be able to hold anything heavier than a coffee cup. Range, she said quietly. Colonel Thorne Lancaster pressed his face against the spotting scope, frost forming on his graying beard. 54 years old, 36 years as a Navy SEAL, and he had never been this scared. 1847 yards, he replied, his voice steady. Professional, lying. Wind 18 miles per hour, gusting to 25, variable direction. Kira adjusted her scope with mechanical precision. Her right hand shook, not from fear, from nerve damage that 3 surgeons said would never heal. From an IED in Kandahar 2 years ago that should have killed her. From a career that every doctor, every specialist, every goddamn expert said was over. Her finger rested on the trigger guard, not the trigger itself. Everything by the book. Everything exactly as her father had taught her before the desert swallowed him whole. Corporal Brennan, Lancaster said. His voice cracked. 36 years as a SEAL and his voice actually cracked. If you miss, we die. All of us. She turned her head, looked him dead in the eye, ice blue, cold as the mountain wind. For just a moment, Lancaster saw someone else staring back. A ghost he'd known in Helmand Province 13 years ago. A man who'd saved his life with a shot through an 8-inch window at 1,200 yards. Captain Ronan Brennan. Her father. Then I won't miss, sir, Kira said. What happened in the next 3 seconds would become legend, but to understand how a 26-year-old woman with a shattered hand ended up on an Afghan mountain holding 7 lives in her trembling grip, you need to go back 6 months. Back to when the doctors told her she'd never shoot again. Back to when she still believed them. 6 months earlier, the physical therapy room at San Diego VA Hospital smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. April 2024. Kira sat on the examination table, her right hand wrapped in compression bandaging that cost more than her first car. The hand looked normal, felt like shattered glass held together with spite and medical tape. Doctor. Sharon Winters reviewed the chart without looking up. 60 years old, gray hair pulled back severe. The kind of doctor who'd seen too many young bodies try to do things they couldn't anymore. The nerve damage is permanent, Winters said. Clinical, factual, merciless. You've got 40% grip strength in your dominant hand. That's not coming back. No surgery, no therapy, no miracle. Kira stared at her hand, flexed it. The fingers moved slowly, like they were underwater, like they belonged to someone else. And shooting, she asked quietly. Winters finally looked up. Her eyes held something that might have been sympathy if sympathy came with a medical degree and 2 decades of crushing people's dreams. Forget it. You'll never shoot professionally again. Not with that hand. I'm sorry, Corporal Brennan, but that part of your life is over. Through the window past the parking lot, past the chain link fence, Kira could see the Naval Special Warfare Center Coronado, the obstacle course, the training grounds, the place where America's most elite warriors learned to become legends. She'd been watching that compound for 3 weeks, every day, during every therapy session, watching men run, jump, climb, shoot. Everything she used to do before a daisy chain of improvised explosives turned her right hand into abstract art. Thank you, Doctor, Kira said. She stood, left the room, walked through corridors that all looked the same, past wounded warriors in wheelchairs, past amputees learning to walk again, past the ones who stared at walls because the walls didn't ask questions about what happened in Fallujah or Kandahar or any of the dozen other places that turned young soldiers into old ghosts. Outside, the California sun felt like a lie. Too bright, too warm, too alive for how dead she felt inside. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Brennan, she answered. Corporal Kira Brennan. A man's voice, older, authority wrapped in courtesy. Speaking. This is Admiral Dalton Graves. I need you at Coronado, today. 1400 hours. Clear your afternoon. The line went dead. Kira stood in the parking lot holding a phone that had just rerouted her entire future. Admiral Dalton Graves didn't call corporals. Admirals called admirals, generals, the president, not broken Marines with shattered hands and medical discharges pending. She checked her watch, 11:30. She had 2.5 hours to shower change and figure out why a flag officer wanted to see a washed-up sniper who couldn't hold a rifle anymore. The drive to Coronado took 15 minutes through traffic that moved like it had somewhere important to be. Kira didn't. Hadn't for 2 years. Not since the IED. Not since the doctors started using words like permanent and disability and discharge. The guard at the gate checked her ID twice. Looked at her like she was lost. Like corporals didn't drive through this gate unless they were reporting for duty or court-martial. Building 12, the guard said. Admiral's expecting you. Building 12 sat at the heart of Naval Special Warfare Center like a church at the center of a graveyard. Where careers were made, where legends were born, where Kira had dreamed of being since she was 12 years old and her father first put a rifle in her hands. She parked, walked across a blacktop that shimmered in the heat. The building's air conditioning hit like a physical force. Cold, clean, military precise. Admiral Graves's office overlooked the obstacle course where fresh SEAL candidates struggled through morning PT. Some would make it, most wouldn't. The ones who made it would go to war. Some would die there. This was the machine. Kira had wanted to be part of it her entire life. The door opened. A man stepped out. Not the Admiral. 54 years old, 6 feet even. Built like a marathon runner who'd forgotten to stop running. Gray hair cut military short. Eyes that had seen things and decided to keep looking anyway. Corporal Brennan, not a question, a statement. Sir, Colonel Thorne Lancaster, I'll be observing your meeting with the Admiral. He extended his hand. Kira shook it. His grip was firm, professional. He didn't squeeze, didn't test her, just shook like she was a human being instead of a medical statistic. Thank you for coming, Lancaster said. I knew your father. The words hit harder than the IED. Kira's face showed nothing. Stone, ice, everything Ronan Brennan had taught her about controlling emotion in the field. Sir, she managed. Lancaster's eyes flickered. Recognition. Like he'd just confirmed something he'd suspected. Come in, he said. The Admiral's office was exactly what you'd expect. Awards on the walls, photos with presidents and generals, a career measured in combat deployments and congressional medals. Dalton Graves stood behind his desk, 62 years old, silver hair, linebacker build gone slightly soft with age and too many Pentagon meetings. Sit, Graves said. Kira sat. Lancaster remained standing. A presence at her shoulder. Protective or evaluative, she couldn't tell. Your hand, Graves said. No preamble, no small talk. The doctors say you're done. Yes, sir. Do you believe them? Kira looked at her right hand, wrapped, damaged, weak, a hand that used to put rounds through man-sized targets at 1,000 yards. Now it could barely hold a coffee cup without trembling. I don't know what I believe anymore, sir. Graves nodded, opened a folder on his desk, slid it across to her. Inside, her service record, Marine Corps. 8 years, 2 tours Afghanistan, 1 Iraq, 17 kills, unconfirmed, because the Marine Corps didn't officially recognize female snipers in combat roles, because paperwork and politics mattered more than trigger pulls and body counts. 17 unconfirmed, Graves said. We both know they were confirmed, just not recognized. Kira said nothing. We're running a pilot program, Graves continued. First female SEAL sniper trainee, full course, same standards as the men, no special treatment, no lowered bars. You qualify or you wash out. Kira's heart rate increased, just slightly, enough to notice, not enough to show. Sir, my hand. Your father made a 21-47-yard kill with 3 broken ribs, Lancaster said from behind her. Helmand Province, 2011. He was bleeding internally, had maybe 6 hours before he'd have bled out. Made the shot anyway. Saved my entire team. Kira turned, looked at Lancaster, really looked, and saw it. The scar along his jawline, the slight hitch in his left shoulder, the eyes of a man who'd been pulled from a building that was trying to kill him. You were there, she said. Not a question. I was the one bleeding out, Lancaster replied. Your father pulled me from a collapsed building, carried me 400 yards under fire, set up overwatch on a ridge with cracked ribs and a punctured lung, made a shot that shouldn't have been possible, killed the Taliban commander who'd set the ambush, held that position for 6 hours until extraction arrived. Lancaster's voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. He died a year later. IED attack. I never got to thank him properly. The room was quiet, just the hum of air conditioning and the weight of debts unpaid. This is your chance, Graves said. Your father was the best sniper I ever saw. You have his genetics, his training, his instinct. What you don't have is a career anymore. Not as a Marine. Not with that hand, Graves leaned forward. But if you can adapt, If you can prove that excellence isn't about physical perfection, it's about mental resilience and technical skill, then you don't just save your own career. You open the door for every woman who comes after you. Kira looked at the folder, her entire military life reduced to paper and statistics and unconfirmed kills that everyone knew were real. When do I start? She asked. Right now, Lancaster said. I've got 24 SEAL candidates on the range. They're about to learn what excellence looks like. 100 degrees Fahrenheit, no shade, no mercy. The kind of heat that turned the Southern California desert into a blast furnace where only the determined or the insane chose to train. 24 SEAL candidates stood in formation, all male, ages 22 to 28. Every single one had survived basic underwater demolition training. Badass, the filter that turned normal men into SEALs, the grinder that broke bodies and rebuilt them harder. Elite among elite, and they were getting sloppy. Lancaster stood at the firing line, arms crossed, face showing nothing. 600 yards, he announced, voice carrying across the range without amplification. Wind 15 miles per hour, gusting to 20, 10 shots, minimum 8 hits to pass. The candidates moved to firing positions. Lancaster walked behind them, observing, judging, finding failure in small details that added up to dead teammates in real combat. One candidate's elbow was too high, another gripped too tight. A third tall blonde, built like a Tennessee farm boy who'd grown up throwing hay bales, was checking his phone. Candidate Sullivan, Lancaster said, voice like a knife. Garrett Sullivan jerked to attention, 27 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds, cocky smile that women loved and officers hated. Sir, put the phone away and get on your rifle. Yes, sir. Lancaster stepped back. Commence firing. The range erupted. M4A1 rifles cracking, brass ejecting in golden arcs, targets dancing in heat shimmer 6 football fields away. The smell of gunpowder and hot metal in desperation. 10 minutes later, ceasefire. Lancaster walked the line with binoculars, checking targets, counting hits, finding exactly what he expected. Failure. Candidate Peterson, 7 hits, fail. Candidate Walsh, 6 hits, fail. Sullivan, 8 hits, barely passing. 6 out of 24 made minimum standard. Pathetic. You know your problem, Lancaster said, voice carrying. You think marksmanship is about the rifle. It's not. It's about reading environment. Wind isn't constant. It gusts, shifts. You need to watch grass, heat shimmer, how air moves. Your rifle doesn't know those things. You do. The range office door opened. Admiral Graves walked out. Behind him came a woman. The range went silent. She was tiny, 5'3" at most. Slender build, Marine Corps utilities that hung loose on her small frame, despite obvious tailoring. Dark brown hair pulled back in a tight regulation bun. Young face. Pretty in a way that had nothing to do with makeup and everything to do with bone structure and genetics. But she carried herself like she'd forgotten what fear felt like. 24 male SEAL candidates stared. Lancaster saw Sullivan elbow the man beside him, saw smirks, heard a whispered comment ending with the words, "Make coffee." Attention, Lancaster said, voice cracking like a whip. 23 candidates snapped to attention. Sullivan took an extra second. Lancaster noted it, filed it away. Sullivan was going to be a problem. Gentlemen, Graves said, this is Corporal Kira Brennan, United States Marine Corps, 8 years service, 2 tours Afghanistan, 1 Iraq. As of today, she's joining your training program. Profound silence, then someone laughed. Just a short bark of disbelief quickly stifled. Something funny. Graves's voice went arctic. Silence again. Graves turned to Lancaster. Commander, she's all yours. Give her a weapon and a lane. The Admiral left. Walked back to his office without looking back, leaving Lancaster with 24 stunned candidates and one woman who looked like she'd rather be getting shot at than standing here. Lancaster studied her. She met his eyes without flinching. No fear, no uncertainty, just calm assessment. Ice blue eyes that reminded him so much of Ronan Brennan it hurt. Corporal Brennan, sir. Her voice was steady, clear, professional. Ever fire an M4A1? Yes, sir. Qualified expert. Marine Corps standard. From the formation, Sullivan muttered something, just loud enough to hear. Just quiet enough to pretend he didn't say it. The word Marines with distinct contempt, like it was something you scraped off your boot. Sullivan, Lancaster said. Not loud, not angry, just present. The candidate straightened. Sir, you have something to say. No, sir. Good. Lancaster turned back to Kira. The course is simple. 600 yards, 10 shots, 8 hits minimum. Wind 15 to 20 miles per hour from the west. Can you handle that? Yes, sir. Lane 12. Get on the line. Kira moved without hesitation, Picked up an M4A1 from the rack, checked chamber, magazine, safety. Everything by the book. Muscle memory from 8 years of doing this exact sequence until it became breathing. Her hands were small. She had to adjust her grip to reach the trigger properly. The right hand, the damaged one, trembled slightly as she made the adjustment. Sullivan was watching, smirking. 23 other candidates were watching too. Some curious, some skeptical. Sullivan just looked hostile. "Since you all performed so brilliantly," Lancaster said, "you get to watch Corporal Brennan's attempt. Maybe you'll learn something." Kira took position, prone, elbows planted, rifle steady against her shoulder. She didn't rush, took time adjusting the stock, checking the scope, getting comfortable, making the weapon an extension of her body. Lancaster knelt beside her, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to give her space. "First time on this range," he said. "Yes, sir. Wind's tricky here, comes off the ocean, funnels through the canyon. Can't trust instruments. You have to read it." "How, sir?" Lancaster pointed at grass along the berm. Brown and dying in the California drought, but still moving in wind currents invisible to untrained eyes. "Watch how it moves. See that section at 400 yards barely moving. But at 500, it's whipping. That's where your bullet starts to drift." Kira studied the grass, eyes tracking across the range, reading patterns in vegetation and heat shimmer that most people would never see, learning the invisible language of wind and distance that separated good shooters from legends. Ronan Brennan's daughter. Of course she could read wind. "Ready, Corporal?" Lancaster asked. "Yes, sir." "Commence firing." Kira took a breath, let it out slowly, controlled. Her finger moved to the trigger. First stage of pull, taking up slack. Then the tremor hit. Her right hand spasmed, violent, involuntary. The rifle shifted. Just slightly, just enough to throw off a shot at 600 yards. She froze. Behind her, Sullivan's smirk widened. Kira closed her eyes. Just for a second, and in that second she heard her father's voice from a decade ago. Montana wilderness, teaching a 12-year-old girl to shoot elk in mountain wind. "Broken things can still cut, kid. You just have to find a new edge." She opened her eyes, adjusted her grip. Instead of fighting the tremor, she worked with it, shifted her hand position. Less pressure on damaged nerves, more support from her left hand. Unorthodox, not by the book, but it worked. The trembling stopped. First shot rang out. Through binoculars, Lancaster saw the target. Dead center. Perfect hit. Kira chambered another round. Same breath control, same smooth trigger pull. The modified grip held. Second shot, center mass. Third shot, center mass. Fourth shot, center mass. Sullivan stopped smirking. Fifth shot, center mass. "Cease fire," Lancaster said. Kira lifted her head. Face showed nothing. No pride, no satisfaction. Professional calm. "Sir, I have 5 shots remaining." "I know. Let's make this more interesting. 800 yards. A whisper ran through the candidates. 800 yards was expert level. Half of them couldn't hit consistently at that range. It wasn't part of the basic qualification. Lancaster was testing her. 5 shots, 3 hits minimum. You'll need to calculate holdover and windage yourself." "Understand." "Yes, sir." Kira adjusted position. Slight change in body angle. Scope adjustment for the increased range. She didn't rush, didn't panic. Just made calculations like she'd done this 10,000 times before. Which she had. Just never with a damaged hand that shook like earthquake tremors. She wasn't looking at the target. She was looking at grass, heat shimmer, the way air bent light at distance, reading the environment, just like her father taught her, just like Lancaster had told her 3 minutes ago. First shot at 800 yards, hit, top right of center mass. Kira made a tiny scope adjustment, breathing slowed. Lancaster watched her neck, could see her pulse. Slow, steady, maybe 60 beats per minute. Most people under this kind of pressure would be over 100. Second shot, hit, center mass. Third shot, hit, center mass. Fourth shot, hit, headshot. The target's silhouette had a 6-inch circle representing the head. At 800 yards hitting, it was more luck than skill. Kira hit it. Fifth shot, hit, another headshot. She cleared her weapon, stood, locked the rifle. Her face showed absolutely nothing. Silence on the range, the kind of silence that comes right before a storm, right before everything changes. Lancaster walked to her position, looked at her, then at the target, then back at her. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that?" he asked quietly. "My father, sir. Captain Ronan Brennan." She didn't blink, didn't look away. Just stated fact. Lancaster's jaw worked. For just a moment his professional mask slipped. Grief, gratitude, guilt, all the things he'd carried for 13 years since a man bled out saving his life. I knew him, Lancaster said, even quieter. Hellman, 2011. He saved my team. He paused, made sure she was really listening. And Corporal, you just shot better than 24 SEAL candidates. 5 for 5 at 800 yards. With wind you've never read before. With a hand that's 40% disabled. For just a moment, just one Kira's mask cracked. Eyes glistened. Then professional composure returned like armor. Thank you, sir. Lancaster turned to the candidates, raised his voice. You just witnessed what happens when you pay attention to fundamentals. Corporal Brennan didn't make that look easy because she's lucky. She made it look easy because she understands environment. She reads wind. She calculates holdover. She controls her breathing. He let that sink in. You know, all the things I've been teaching for 6 weeks that you've been ignoring. Sullivan raised his hand, slowly, like he really didn't want to, but couldn't help himself. Sir, with respect, this is a SEAL course. She's a Marine. Why is she here? Good question. Lancaster had wondered the same thing before he knew who she was, before he knew what she represented. Because the Navy has decided to test whether women can perform at special operations level, Lancaster said. Corporal Brennan is that test. She'll train alongside you, be held to the same standards. No special treatment, no lowered expectations. He paused, looked at each candidate, made sure they understood. If she fails, she fails. If she succeeds, Lancaster looked at Kira, saw Ronan Brennan staring back through those ice blue eyes. Well, that'll be interesting. He addressed the formation again. Dismissed, 0600 tomorrow. Sullivan, my office. After formation. The candidates scattered, talking quietly, glancing back at Kira. Some looked impressed. Some looked skeptical. Sullivan just looked angry. Kira stood at attention, waiting. At ease, Corporal, Lancaster said. Walk with me. They left the range, headed toward the admin building. The afternoon sun was starting its descent toward the Pacific, painting the sky in colors that had no names, making everything look temporary and beautiful and doomed. You're going to have a rough time, Lancaster said quietly. I know, sir. These men don't want you here. Some because they're sexist, some because they genuinely believe women can't handle the physical demands, and some because they're scared you'll prove them wrong. They walked in silence for 20 paces. Which one are you, sir? Kira asked. Lancaster stopped, looked at her. She met his eyes without fear, without challenge, just honesty. Honestly, he said, I don't know yet. I've never trained a woman for special operations. But I'll tell you this. He chose his words carefully. I don't care if you're male, female, or a trained chimpanzee. If you can do the job, you belong. If you can't, you don't. Simple as that. Fair enough, sir. They reached the admin building. Lancaster stopped at the door. Your father, he said. IED attack. Helmand, 2012. Right. Yes, sir. How old were you? 14. That's rough. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. Is that why you're here? Because of him? Kira was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was softer, more human, like the armor had developed a crack. My father believed in service, in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. He died doing exactly that. She looked up, met Lancaster's eyes. I want to be good enough to save people the way he did, not to prove anything, just to be worthy of his legacy. Lancaster felt something crack in his chest. 36 years as a SEAL. He'd lost teammates, friends, brothers, carried their names like stones in his pockets, felt their weight every single day. He knew exactly what carrying the dead felt like. Your father made a shot that saved my entire team, Lancaster said. 1,200 yards through an 8-inch window, 2 tangos behind the glass. He killed them both with 1 bullet, saved the hostage, saved my men. I owe him my life. He extended his hand. So I'll make you a deal. You work harder than everyone else. You prove you belong, and I'll train you exactly the way I would have trained Ronan Brennan himself. No mercy, no special treatment. Just excellence. Kira shook his hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong despite the damage. Deal, sir. Good. Get out of here. Tomorrow. 0600. We start real training. He paused. And Corporal, get sleep. You're going to need it. She saluted. Left. Walked across the compound toward visiting officer quarters where they'd assigned her a room. Lancaster watched her go. 5'3", 118 pounds. Looking like a strong breeze could knock her over. She just outshot 24 Navy SEAL candidates. Ronan Brennan's daughter. This was either going to be Naval Special Warfare's best decision or its worst. Lancaster pulled out his phone, called Admiral Graves. Well, Graves answered, can she shoot? Sir, She shot 5 for 5 at 800 yards with a hand that shouldn't be able to grip a coffee cup. I know. I watched from my office. What do you think overall? Lancaster looked at the spot where Kira had disappeared around a corner. Thought about what he'd seen. The ice-cold control, the adaptation to injury. The way she'd modified her grip in real time to compensate for nerve damage. I think if she survives the next 6 months, she's going to make history. And if she doesn't, Graves asked, then we tried. Lancaster paused, chose his next words carefully. But Admiral, my gut says she'll make it. She's got her father's eyes, that cold calculation, and something else. What? She's got nothing to lose. Doctors already wrote her off. Marine Corps won't recognize her kills. This is her last chance at the life she wanted. That makes her dangerous. Dangerous how? Dangerous like she'll die before she quits. Like she'll find a way or make one. Like she's already decided failure isn't an option. Lancaster hung up, headed home. Tomorrow would be hell. The candidates would test Kira, push her, try to break her. And Lancaster would watch, waiting to see if Ronan Brennan's daughter was made of the same steel that had saved his life 13 years ago. He had a feeling he already knew the answer. But in warfare, feelings didn't mean shit. Only results mattered. And in 6 months on a mountain in Afghanistan, at 14,000 feet with 7 lives hanging on a single trigger pull, Kira Brennan would deliver results that would become legend. But first, she had to survive tomorrow. The first week was designed to break her. 600 hours. Day 2, the grinder. A concrete pad where countless SEALs had suffered through physical training that turned muscles into stone and lungs into fire. Kira stood in formation wearing Navy PT gear that hung loose on her small frame, despite the tailoring. The only woman among 24 men. Garrett Sullivan stood 2 positions down. She could feel his eyes on her, hostile, measuring, waiting for failure. Lancaster stood at the front of formation, face showing nothing. At 54, he could still run these candidates into the ground. Had done it yesterday, would do it again today. Today, we test baseline fitness, he announced. Voice carrying across the grinder without strain. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 20 pull-ups, 4-mile run. Standards are the same for everyone. He looked directly at Kira. Corporal Brennan, you're held to male standards, not female. Understood. Yes, sir. On the ground, push-up position, begin. 25 bodies dropped. Lancaster walked among them, counting, watching form, finding failure in details that would get people killed in combat. Kira's form was perfect. Full extension, chest to ground, back straight. Her right hand screamed, nerve damage firing pain signals that her brain had learned to categorize as irrelevant. Thin arms but wiry, muscle built from 8 years of Marine Corps life. Arms that moved with controlled precision despite the damage. 15, 16, 17. Sullivan blazed through reps next to her, making it look easy. 6'2", 210 pounds of farm boy strength. He glanced at Kira, clearly expecting her to struggle. She wasn't struggling. 40, 41, 42. Some of the bigger candidates were slowing, arms shaking, form degrading into something that looked more like seizures than push-ups. Kira kept going. Same pace, same control. Right hand trembling, but holding. 70, 71. She's going to fail, Sullivan muttered. Loud enough for Kira to hear. Quiet enough to pretend he wasn't talking to her. No way she makes 100. Kira didn't respond, didn't glance over. Just kept pumping out push-ups like her life depended on it, because it did. 98, 99, 100. Recover. All 25 stood, most breathing hard, sweat already soaking through PT shirts in the cool morning air. Kira's face was flushed, but her breathing was controlled, measured, like she'd done this 10,000 times before, which she had. Sit-ups, begin. Lancaster watched her knock out 100 sit-ups in 3 minutes flat, then pull-ups. Her small frame was actually an advantage here, less weight to lift. She cranked out 20 while bigger men struggled with 18 or 19. The 4-mile run was where Lancaster expected her to break. The candidates took off in a pack. Sullivan and 3 others surged to the front, setting a punishing pace. 6-minute miles. Most couldn't sustain it, burning out their legs in the first half mile trying to prove something to themselves or each other, or the woman running behind them. Kira settled into the middle of the pack. Smart. Don't blow yourself out chasing rabbits who'll collapse in 2 miles. Run your own race. Finish strong. Mile 1, 7 minutes. Mile 2, 7 minutes, 10 seconds. By mile 3, the pack had spread like shrapnel. Sullivan still led, running angry, trying to prove that farm boy strength could overcome tactics and pacing. 3 men ran with him, all gasping, all dying, all too proud to slow down. Kira had moved up to fifth position, breathing hard but controlled, face set in concentration, right hand clenched to minimize the tremor, left arm pumping in rhythm. Lancaster watched from the finish line, timing each runner, noting who collapsed, who quit, who found something deeper than muscle when muscle gave out. Lead runners came in at 24 minutes. Good, not exceptional. Sullivan crossed the line and immediately bent over, hands on knees, sucking air like a drowning man. Kira crossed at 28 minutes, 10th overall out of 25. She doubled over, hands on knees, chest heaving. But she'd passed every standard. Sullivan jogged to his buddies. Still fresh enough to talk, still cocky enough to make it obvious. Not bad for a girl, he said, loud enough to carry. Almost kept up. Kira straightened, wiped sweat from her face, walked past without a word. Didn't acknowledge him, didn't engage. Just moved like he was furniture. Hey, Sullivan's voice went sharp. I'm talking to you. She stopped, turned, ice blue eyes that showed absolutely nothing. Was there something you needed, candidate Sullivan? Just wondering how long before you quit. Week maybe, 2 at most. I won't quit. Sure you won't, Sullivan smiled. Not friendly. Look, nothing personal, but this isn't a place for women. You're taking a slot from someone who deserves it. Kira's expression didn't change. Didn't show anger or hurt or any of the emotions Sullivan was fishing for. You mean someone like you? She asked quietly. Yeah, like me. Candidate Sullivan. Lancaster's voice cut across the grinder like a blade. Unless you want to run another 4 miles, shut your mouth and get to the showers. Sullivan's jaw clenched. Sir, I know what you were doing. If I catch you sabotaging Corporal Brennan's training, you'll be gone so fast your head will spin. This program is about excellence, not your fragile ego. Clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good. Dismissed. The candidates scattered, heading for showers and breakfast and whatever recovery their bodies could manage before the next evolution. Sullivan shot Kira one last look, something between anger and grudging respect, then left. Kira remained at attention. At ease, Corporal, Lancaster said. He walked closer, lowered his voice. You handled that well. He doesn't bother me, sir. He will, and so will the others. They'll test you in ways you can't imagine. Lancaster glanced toward the barracks where Sullivan had disappeared. You know why? Because I'm different. No, because you're good, and that scares them. He let that sink in. Excellence makes mediocre men angry. Remember that. Over the next 3 weeks, Kira proved herself again and again. On the rifle range, she consistently outshot everyone. 600 yards, 800, 1,000. Didn't matter. She'd calculate windage, adjust for bullet drop, control her breathing despite the pain in her damaged hand. Put rounds exactly where they needed to go. The candidates stopped laughing by week 2. By week 3, some were asking her for advice. How do you read wind so well? It was candidate Walsh. Decent shooter. Just inconsistent. He approached Kira one afternoon while she cleaned her rifle with methodical care, like meditation, like prayer. Kira didn't look up, kept running the cleaning rod through the barrel. Smooth, practiced, 10,000 repetitions, making it automatic. My father taught me to watch grass, she said quietly. Not just at your target, all the way downrange. Wind isn't constant. It flows like water. You need to see the current. Walsh nodded, absorbing this. Your father was a Marine sniper, right? Scout sniper. Best in his generation. How'd he die? The question hung in the air. Kira's hands stopped for just a second, then resumed cleaning. IED, Helmand Province, 2012. Taliban waited until he was moving positions, then detonated. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reading a weather report. He died instantly. Didn't suffer. I'm sorry. Don't be. He died doing what he loved. Kira looked up, met Walsh's eyes. Now let me see your rifle. Your trigger control is sloppy. Lancaster watched from his office window. Kira was earning respect the hard way, through competence, through patience, through being better than she had to be and never rubbing it in anyone's face. All the candidates were starting to see her as a teammate, not an outsider. All except Sullivan. Week 4 brought close quarters battle training, room clearing, hostage rescue, live fire in tight spaces where size and strength mattered more than marksmanship. This was where Kira struggled. The first drill required full tactical gear, 60 pounds of body armor, weapons, ammunition, communications equipment, breaching tools, everything a SEAL needed to kick down doors and save lives. The gear didn't fit. Kira looked like a child playing dress-up. Plate carrier hung loose despite maximum adjustment. Helmet wobbled. She could barely move under the weight. "This is a problem," Lancaster told her privately, after watching her struggle through the first evolution. "The gear doesn't fit. You can't operate effectively like this." "I'll make it work, sir." "It's not about willpower. It's physics. You need equipment sized for your frame." 2 days later, custom gear arrived. Smaller plates, adjusted carrier, helmet built for her head size instead of average male proportions. Cost a fortune. Lancaster didn't care. If she was going to train, she needed equipment that worked. With proper gear, the difference was night and day. Room clearing drill, breach the door, pie the corner, engage threats, move to next room, clear, secure, repeat. Kira flowed through the kill house like water. Small size became an advantage. Better use of cover, smaller target. Movement through tight spaces where bigger candidates couldn't navigate without making noise. Her time, 42 seconds. 0 hostage casualties. All threats neutralized. Sullivan's time, 45 seconds. 1 hostage hit by stray round. The smirk on Sullivan's face died when he saw the scores posted. That night, something broke inside him. Lancaster was finishing paperwork when he heard shouting from the armory. He grabbed his sidearm and ran. 36 years as a SEAL had taught him that shouting in an armory meant someone was about to die or already had. Inside, Kira stood over her disassembled M4. Parts scattered across the workbench in organized chaos. The rifle was field stripped down to individual components. Sullivan stood across from her, arms crossed, face showing something between anger and desperation. "What's going on?" Lancaster demanded. "Nothing, sir," Sullivan said quickly. Too quickly. "Just having a conversation." Corporal Kira's face was tight with barely controlled rage. Professional mask straining under pressure. Candidate Sullivan was offering unsolicited advice on weapon maintenance, sir. "That's so." Lancaster walked to the workbench, looked at Kira's rifle. Something was wrong. The bolt carrier group was assembled incorrectly, firing pin backwards. If she tried to fire this weapon, it would explode. Take her hand off, possibly kill her. He picked up the bolt carrier, looked at Sullivan. "You did this." "Sir, I don't know what." "Don't." Lancaster's voice went arctic, colder than the Hindu Kush at midnight. "I've been doing this 36 years. I know sabotage when I see it." He held up the bolt carrier. "You reassembled her weapon incorrectly, on purpose. Tomorrow she has qualification. If Corporal Brennan had fired this, it would have blown up in her face. She could have lost her hand, her eye, could have died." Sullivan went pale, realizing what he'd done, realizing he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "So I'm asking once," Lancaster continued, voice deadly quiet. "Did you sabotage her rifle?" Silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. Then Kira spoke. "Sir, I'd like to handle this myself." Lancaster turned. "What?" "This is between me and candidate Sullivan." She looked at Sullivan. No anger, no fear, just ice-cold calculation. "You want to prove I don't belong? Fine. Tomorrow's qualification. You and me. Same target, same distance. Whoever scores higher stays. Whoever loses requests transfer." "Corporal, that's not how." "I'm volunteering, sir. My choice." Sullivan found his voice. Pride wouldn't let him back down. Not in front of a woman, not in front of Lancaster. "You're serious?" "Completely. Unless you're scared." The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Sullivan looked at Lancaster, then back at Kira, calculating, weighing odds, deciding if his ego could survive backing down. "You're on." Lancaster wanted to stop this. Should have. But he saw something in Kira's eyes. The same cold certainty her father had possessed before making impossible shots. The look of someone who'd already decided how this ended. "Fine," he said. "Tomorrow, 1,400 hours, 500 meters, 10 moving targets. Best score wins." He turned to Sullivan. "But candidate Sullivan, if you lose, you're gone. And if I catch you sabotaging equipment again, you'll face court-martial. Clear?" "Yes, sir." "Both of you get out." They left. Lancaster stood in the armory holding a bolt carrier that had almost killed someone. 36 years, and he still underestimated how petty fear could make people. How desperate mediocrity became when confronted with excellence. He reassembled Kira's rifle himself? Correctly. Triple-checked every component. Left it locked in his office safe. Tomorrow would be interesting. The next afternoon, the entire class assembled at the range. 1,400 hours. Heat radiating off concrete in visible waves. Word had spread through the compound like wildfire. This wasn't just qualification. This was a duel. Sullivan went first. He was good. Lancaster had to admit that. The targets moved at 15 miles per hour, crossing at various angles. Difficult shots requiring the shooter to lead the target, compensate for movement, calculate windage on something that wouldn't be in the same place when the bullet arrived. Sullivan hit 9 out of 10, 88 points out of possible 100. Solid, professional level. The candidates cheered. Sullivan stood confident, glanced at Kira, smiled, like this was already over. Your turn, he said. Kira took position. Lane 12. Same lane she'd shot from 3 weeks ago when this all started. She checked her rifle. The one Lancaster had personally reassembled. Triple-checked, verified safe, adjusted her scope, settled into firing position. Right hand wrapped in fresh compression bandaging, hidden under her shooting glove, trembling slightly despite the support. The targets began moving. First shot, center mass, 10 points. Second shot, center mass, 10 points. Third shot, headshot, 12 points. By the fifth shot, the range had gone completely silent. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Kira wasn't just hitting targets. She was picking exactly where to hit. Center mass for closer ones, headshots for distant, reading movement patterns, predicting paths, making calculations that most shooters couldn't manage on stationary targets. 10th shot, final target, maximum range, moving perpendicular at full speed, a shot that required leading the target by 6 feet and compensating for wind that changed direction twice during the bullet's flight time. Headshot, perfect score, 104 points out of 100 possible. Kira cleared her weapon, stood, looked at Sullivan. I believe you have a transfer request to file. Sullivan's face went through emotions like shuffling cards. Anger, humiliation, disbelief. Then surprisingly something like respect. How did you, he started. My father taught me to shoot elk in Montana. They move faster than your targets and don't run in straight lines. Kira's expression softened. Just slightly. You're a good shooter, Sullivan, but you're so busy trying to prove I don't belong that you forgot to focus on your own performance. She walked past him. Stopped. I don't want you to transfer. I want you to stay, get better, and remember that excellence has nothing to do with gender. It's about skill, dedication, and leaving your ego at the door. Sullivan stood silent, processing, then did something Lancaster didn't expect. Extended his hand. You're right, he said quietly. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Kira shook his hand. Firm grip despite the damaged hand. Apology accepted. Now let's both get better. Lancaster watched from the range tower. This was what the teams were supposed to be about. Not politics, not prejudice. Warriors respecting warriors. Excellence recognizing excellence. That evening, his phone rang. Admiral Graves. How's it going with Brennan? She just outshot my best candidate and turned him from enemy into ally in the same afternoon. Good, because I need to brief you on something classified. SCIF Alpha, 30 minutes. SCIF, sensitive compartmented information facility, soundproof, bug-proof, where real secrets lived and casual conversations could start wars. Lancaster arrived 28 minutes later. Graves waited with a man Lancaster didn't recognize. Late 40s, suit and tie, the unmistakable bearing of someone who'd spent decades in places that officially didn't exist. Commander Lancaster, Graves said, this is Marcus Webb, CIA, Special Activities Division. They shook hands. Webb's grip was firm, professional, the handshake of someone who'd killed people and filed the paperwork afterward. Commander, Webb said, I've heard good things. Don't believe them. What's this about? Graves pulled up a digital file. A photograph appeared on the screen. Middle Eastern male, late 30s, beard, eyes that had seen too much death and decided to see more. Khalid al-Rahman, Graves said, ISIS-K commander, responsible for 12 major terror attacks, 300-plus casualties. Been on our target list for 2 years. And you haven't killed him because he's smart, Webb interrupted. Moves constantly, uses body doubles, stays off electronic communications. We've tried drone strikes. He hides in caves. We sent Delta Force last year. They got ambushed. 3 KIA. Lancaster studied the photo, memorizing the face, the eyes, the particular kind of evil that looked human until you got close enough to see it wasn't. What's changed, he asked. We have a solid location, Graves said. He pulled up satellite imagery. Hindu Kush Mountains, Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Compound at 9,000 feet elevation. The image showed a cluster of buildings clinging to a mountainside like barnacles, surrounded by steep terrain, natural defenses, approach routes that looked like suicide. But there's a problem, Webb said. Of course there was. The compound is surrounded by 40 fighters minimum. Natural defenses make ground assault impossible. Previous drone strikes failed because of an extensive cave system. He just goes underground and waits us out. So you want a sniper mission? Not just any sniper mission. Webb leaned forward. His eyes were very serious. The compound is 1,420 yards from the nearest viable shooting position. Extreme long range, downhill angle, Variable mountain winds? It's a shot maybe 10 people in the world could make. Lancaster saw where this was going. Felt it in his gut like a bullet he hadn't dodged yet. And you want Brennan? Her father held the third longest confirmed kill in Marine Corps history, Webb said. 2147 yards. Helmand Province, 2011. We've watched her train. She has his talent. Maybe better. She's never been in combat. This would be her first real mission. Which is why you'll lead the team, Graves said. 8 operators. You pick them. Brennan is primary sniper. But Thorne, this needs to happen in 3 weeks. Al-Rahman is moving locations. This is our window. Lancaster walked to the map. Studied terrain, 1,420 yards, downhill, mountain winds. He shook his head slowly. That's nearly a mile. At that distance, Coriolis effect comes into play. Earth's rotation affects the bullet. Temperature, altitude, humidity. Everything matters, he turned. And she'd be shooting at a target she's never seen. In conditions she's never experienced. With zero room for error. Can she do it? Graves asked. Lancaster thought about Kira, her cold focus. Perfect breathing control. The way she read wind like her father taught her. The way she'd adapted her shooting technique to compensate for a damaged hand that shouldn't work at all. I don't know, he said honestly, but if anyone can, it's her. Then you're green lit. Assemble your team. 3 weeks to train for this specific mission, then you deploy. Lancaster nodded, then stopped. One condition. What? I tell Brennan myself, and I give her the choice. She's not ready for combat. She can say no. No consequences to her career or this program. Graves and Webb exchanged looks. Some silent communication that Lancaster couldn't read. Agreed, Graves finally said. Lancaster found Kira in the barracks, cleaning her rifle again. She cleaned weapons the way monks prayed. Constant, meditative, reverent. Corporal, walk with me. They went outside. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in oranges and purples that looked too beautiful to be real. Lancaster wondered if they'd both see another sunset like this. If they'd both come back from what he was about to propose. I have something to tell you, he said, and you're not going to like it. Kira's face remained neutral. Sir, you're being deployed. Real mission, real combat, 3 weeks from now. Where? Afghanistan, Hindu Kush Mountains. Target is high-value ISIS-K commander. You'd be primary sniper. What's the range? 1,420 yards, give or take. Kira was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was very careful. Sir, I've never shot in combat. Longest I've made in training is 1,200 yards. This is insane, I know, which is why I'm giving you a choice. You can say no. No one will blame you. This mission would be suicide for most snipers. Who else could make the shot? Honestly, maybe 5 people on Earth. Your father was one of them. Kira stared at the ocean. Waves rolled in, eternal, indifferent. The Pacific didn't care about missions or pressure or 26-year-old women trying to live up to legends. If I say no, she asked quietly, what happens? We find someone else. Maybe they make the shot. Maybe they don't. But 300 people are alive today who wouldn't be if Al-Rahman continues operating. And if I miss, Lancaster met her eyes, then my team dies, all of us, because we'll be exposed, 14,000 feet up a mountain, surrounded by hostiles. One shot, that's all you get. That's a lot of pressure, sir. More pressure than anyone should carry, which is why I'll understand if you say no. Kira turned from the ocean, looked at Lancaster. Her ice blue eyes showed something he hadn't seen before. Not fear, not doubt. Something deeper. Something harder. My father died protecting people, she said. I joined the military to do the same. If I say no because I'm scared, then I'm not worthy of his legacy. This isn't about legacy. This is about survival. With respect, sir, those are the same thing. Kira straightened, came to attention. I'll do it. I'll make the shot. You haven't even heard the full briefing. Don't need to. You're asking if I can make a 1,400-yard shot to save lives. The answer is yes, sir. I'll make it, or I'll die trying. Lancaster saw Ronan Brennan in her eyes again. That absolute certainty, that refusal to accept failure, that particular kind of insanity that made people into heroes or corpses. God help them all. Okay, he said quietly. Tomorrow we start mission-specific training. He put a hand on her shoulder. And Corporal, your father once saved my entire team with a shot through an 8-inch window at 1,200 yards. If you're half as good as him, we'll be fine. And if I'm not, sir, Lancaster smiled grimly, then we'll die together. Which honestly is how it should be. The next morning, Lancaster assembled his team, 7 operators, each the best in their field. Men he'd trust with his life. Men he'd fought beside for years. Men who'd follow him into hell if he asked. And he was about to ask. Master Chief Marcus Kane walked in first. 41 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds. Built like something that broke through walls for a living. Lancaster's best friend for 18 years. The kind of friendship forged in Fallujah and Kandahar, where bullets decided who lived and words didn't matter. Boss, Kane said. Thick Boston accent that 18 years in the Navy hadn't softened. Heard we got something interesting. That's one word for it. Sit. The others arrived in sequence. Lieutenant Owen Hayes, 35, secondary sniper and spotter, lean and wiry, Wyoming ranch kid who'd grown up shooting coyotes at 800 yards. 47 confirmed kills before this mission, professional. Competitive, very good but not quite elite. Petty Officer First Class Nathan Whitmore, 38, combat medic, graying temples. Calm as a frozen lake. Former Army Ranger who'd switched to SEALs 5 years back, had saved 23 lives in documented combat. The kind of man who could perform surgery while mortars landed and never spill a drop of blood. Chief Petty Officer Derek Morrison handled demolitions, 29. MIT engineering degree before he decided college was boring and explosions were interesting. Smart, cocky, brilliant with anything that went boom. Petty Officer Second Class Ryan Beckett was point man, 28, Montana native, tracker and wilderness survival expert, quiet, observant, could read terrain like most people read books. Absolutely lethal in close quarters. Petty Officer Second Class James Torres ran communications and tech. 32, could hack anything with a signal. Red hair, slight build. Genius IQ that manifested in making enemy communications networks commit suicide. The last to arrive was Kira. She walked in, saw 7 male SEALs, took a seat without hesitation. No fear, no uncertainty, just professional calm. Kane glanced at Lancaster, eyebrow raised. Silent question. Lancaster gave a tiny nod. Trust me. Gentlemen, Corporal, Lancaster began. You're here because you're the best at what you do. In 3 weeks, we deploy to Afghanistan for direct action against a high-value target. This mission is classified top secret. If you can't commit leave now, no one moved. Good. Target is Khalid al-Rahman, ISIS-K commander, responsible for 300 deaths. He's hiding in a compound in the Hindu Kush. 9,000 feet elevation, surrounded by 40-plus fighters. Lancaster pulled up satellite imagery on the screen. We can't drone strike because of caves. Can't assault because the approach is a kill zone. He pointed to a ridge on the image. So we're going to snipe him. From here. 1,420 yards. Downhill angle. Extreme long range. Kane whistled low. That's almost a mile, boss. I'm aware. Corporal Brennan is primary sniper. Hayes, your spotter. Everyone else provides security and exfil. Owen Hayes spoke, his voice careful. Sir, has Corporal Brennan ever made a shot that far? In training, 1,400 yards, perfect conditions. In combat, no, this will be her first mission. Silence filled the room like smoke. Her first mission is a 1,400-yard shot. Kane looked incredulous. Kira stood. If I could address the team, sir. Lancaster nodded. She turned to face them. 7 men who'd seen more combat than most generals. 7 pairs of eyes evaluating her. Judging, deciding if she'd get them killed. I know what you're thinking, she said, voice steady. I'm 26, never been in combat, being asked to make an impossible shot. You're right to be skeptical, she paused. Let that sink in. But my father was Captain Ronan Brennan, Marine Scout sniper. He made a 21-47-yard kill in Afghanistan, 3rd longest in Marine Corps history. He taught me everything he knew. And Commander Lancaster has been training me for 6 months. Another pause. I can make this shot. And I will make this shot, because if I don't, you all die, and I refuse to let that happen. Silence, then Kane started laughing. Big, booming laughter that filled the briefing room. Kid, he said, you got balls, I'll give you that. He stood, walked over, extended his hand. Marcus Kane, call me Reaper. If Lancaster says you can shoot, that's good enough for me. One by one, the others introduced themselves. By the end, Kira had been accepted. Not because of gender, because of skill and guts. The next 2 weeks were systematic hell. They trained specifically for this mission. Altitude conditioning, cold weather operations, extreme long-range shooting. Lancaster pushed them 12 hours a day, every day. No breaks, no mercy. Kira struggled with altitude training. Running at 9,000 feet with thin air was brutal. She'd finish every session gasping, sometimes vomiting from oxygen deprivation. Her body screaming that this wasn't natural, wasn't survivable. But she never quit. Hayes worked with her on shooting. They'd set up at 1,200 yards, then 1,300, then 1,400. Kira would calculate windage, elevation, Coriolis effect, the way Earth's rotation bent bullet trajectory at extreme range. Hayes would spot, call corrections. They became a team. Wind 4 o'clock, 8 miles per hour, Hayes would say. Copy, adjusting 6 mils right. Kira's voice always calm, always professional. Target moving. Lead 3 feet. Got it. Shot. Impact. Hit. Again and again and again. By week 2, Kira was consistent at 1,400 yards. Not perfect. Extreme long range could never be perfect. Too many variables. Too much chaos in wind and temperature, and the simple physics of sending a bullet almost a mile. But consistent enough. The team bonded during downtime, evenings around a campfire after brutal training. They'd share stories, jokes, the dark humor that combat veterans used to cope with stress and memory, and the weight of things they couldn't talk about with civilians. Kane told a story about Iraq, Ramadi, getting pinned in a building with 3 guys and 50 insurgents. So there we were, he said, Boston accent thick. 3 guys, 50 insurgents, and Morrison, I won't say who accidentally drops a thermite grenade on our own vehicle. It was an accident, Morrison protested. You threw it backwards. The team laughed. Even Kira cracked a smile. Later, Whitmore asked about her father. He died in Helmand, IED attack. I was 14. That's rough, kid. I'm sorry. Don't be. He died protecting others. That's what we do. Kane looked at her with something like respect. Your old man, the 2147 shot. That true. Confirmed kill. Taliban commander. Extreme range. High wind. Runs in the family, huh? Kira touched the dog tags around her neck. Her father's tags, worn smooth from 13 years of carrying. I hope so. On day 12, everything changed. Lancaster received a call. Sarah Mitchell, retired CIA analyst. Someone who'd fed him intelligence for 20 years. Someone he trusted more than most active duty officers. Thorne, she said, voice tight. We need to talk, privately. They met at a coffee shop in San Diego, far from Coronado, far from anyone who might listen. Mitchell looked nervous. In 20 years, Lancaster had never seen her nervous. What's wrong? He asked. Your mission, Operation Silent Eagle. It's been compromised. Lancaster's blood went cold. What? 3 previous missions against al-Rahman, all leaked. Someone in the chain of command is feeding intelligence to ISIS-K. I've been tracking the pattern. She slid a folder across the table. Every mission that got compromised had the same 5 people with access. Within 48 hours of deployment, enemy knew exact routes, exact timing, exact positions. Lancaster opened the folder. 5 names. He knew them all. Trusted colleagues, friends. One name made his heart stop. Colonel Vincent Aldrich, the senior instructor who'd tried to break Kira, who'd sabotaged her equipment, who'd made it clear he didn't think women belonged in special operations. But a traitor selling secrets to terrorists, no, Lancaster said. Not Aldrich. He's a decorated officer. 25 years service. Look at the financial records. Mitchell pulled out bank statements, shell company payments. $2.3 million transferred to offshore accounts over 2 years. The company traced back to ISIS financing networks. Lancaster stared at the evidence. 25 years of service, Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor, and underneath it all, a man who'd sold American lives for money. If I report this, he said quietly, the mission gets canceled. If you don't, your team walks into an ambush. Lancaster closed the folder, his mind racing, calculating, deciding how to play this without getting everyone killed. How much time before he can leak our mission details? 72 hours. That's when the final operation order goes up the chain. Aldrich has access. Then we move before that. Change the plan. Different insertion point. Different timeline. Different everything. And we tell no one. Thorne, if you're wrong, I'm not wrong. Aldrich is the mole, and I'll prove it after we complete the mission. Lancaster stood. Thanks, Sarah. You may have just saved my team. That night, he called his team together. Briefing room, doors locked, windows covered. The kind of security that said someone was about to hear things that could get them killed. Mission is compromised, Lancaster said without preamble. We have to assume the enemy knows we're coming. Kane swore. How? Mole in the chain of command. I'll handle it after the mission. Right now, I need you focused on staying alive. He pulled up new maps, new routes, new everything. We're changing insertion point, 15 miles north, new approach route, new timeline. This information stays in this room. No one, and I mean no one outside this team, knows the real plan. Hayes frowned. Boss, if there's a mole and they know we're coming, won't they reinforce the compound? They'll reinforce the old approach. We're coming from a different direction. They won't see us until it's too late. And if they do? Kira asked quietly. Lancaster met her eyes. Then we adapt and overcome, like we always do. The final week of training was intense. They rehearsed the new plan until they could execute it blind. Every contingency, every backup, every escape route. On the last night before deployment, Lancaster found Kira alone on the range, shooting in the dark, her damaged hand wrapped in fresh compression bandaging, rifle reports echoing across the empty compound. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Kira lowered her rifle. "No, sir." "Worried about the mission?" She was quiet for a moment, then worried I'll miss. Worried I'll let everyone down. Lancaster sat on the bench beside her, looked up at stars that didn't care about missions or pressure or young women carrying the weight of the world. "Your father told me something once," he said. "Hellman, 2011, right before that 1,200-yard shot that saved my team." "What did he say?" "He said fear is just oxygen debt. When you're scared, you're not breathing right. So you breathe. Slow down your heart, and fear goes away." Lancaster paused. "Let that settle." "He also said the shot doesn't care if you're scared. It only cares if you do your job." Kira smiled. Faint. "That sounds like him." "And Corporal, you're going to make that shot tomorrow. Not because you have to, but because you're Ronan Brennan's daughter, and excellence is in your blood. And if I'm not good enough, then we die. But honestly," Lancaster looked up at the stars, "I'd rather die with you trying than live knowing we didn't try at all." Kira stood, gathered her rifle. "Thank you, sir, for believing in me. Thank you for being worth believing in. Now get sleep. Tomorrow we go to war." The Chinook helicopter cut through night sky at 200 feet, flying nap of the earth to avoid radar. Inside, 8 operators sat in near darkness, each lost in their own thoughts. Lancaster checked his watch. 0200 hours. The helicopter would drop them 15 miles from target. From there, brutal overland march through terrain that had broken armies for thousands of years. He looked at his team. Kane checked breaching charges for the 3rd time. Whitmore inventoried medical supplies. Torres monitored enemy communications. Morrison and Beckett sat with eyes closed, catching sleep where they could find it. Hayes and Kira sat together, going over the shot one final time. 1,423 yards, Hayes said, voice barely audible over helicopter noise. "Elevation difference, 400 feet. Temperature at target altitude will be 38 degrees. Humidity, 35%. Kira nodded, eyes distant, calculating. "Barometric pressure, 25.84. We're shooting in thin air. Bullet will behave differently than sea level. Less air resistance, flatter trajectory, but also less stability, which means increased wind drift. Wind is the killer at this range." Hayes studied her face. "You really think you can make this shot?" Kira met his eyes. "I have to. No other choice." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters." The pilot's voice crackled through headsets. 2 minutes to LZ. Weather deteriorating. Visibility half mile. Wind gusting to 25. Lancaster keyed his mic. "Copy. We're ready." They weren't ready. No one was ever ready for this. But SEALs didn't wait for perfect conditions. They made imperfect conditions work. The Chinook flared, touching down in a cloud of dust and snow. The ramp dropped. "Go, go, go." 8 operators poured out into Afghan night. The helicopter lifted immediately, disappearing into darkness. Within 30 seconds, the sound of rotors faded to nothing. Silence, then wind hit them. Bitter cold cutting through layers. Altitude making every breath feel insufficient. 7,500 feet. The air was already thin. Kira doubled over, gasping, her lungs screaming for oxygen that wasn't there. Whitmore put a hand on her shoulder. "Breathe slow, small breaths. Your body will adjust." She nodded, forced calm. Slow breath in, slow breath out. Heart rate gradually decreased. "Good," Whitmore said. "You'll be okay." Beckett took point, Kane second, using night vision to scan for threats. The team moved in tactical formation, weapons ready, every sense alert. The march was hell. 15 miles doesn't sound like much, but 15 miles at altitude in darkness over broken terrain, carrying 80 pounds is different. Is suffering measured in hours and distance, and the slow realization that your body has limits you never wanted to find. By hour 3, everyone was suffering. Even Kane, built like a tank, was breathing hard. Kira's small frame struggled with the weight. Lancaster saw her stumble twice, but she never complained, just kept moving, one foot in front of the other. The way her father had taught her. Hour 6. 9 miles covered, sun starting to rise, painting mountains in gold and amber. Beautiful and deadly. "Hold," Beckett whispered. Team froze, went prone, invisible against rocks. Beckett pointed down the trail. 200 meters ahead, 3 figures moved along the ridgeline. Taliban scouts. AK-47S slung casual. Talking in Pashto, Torres listened through translation software, whispered to Lancaster. They're discussing heightened security. Americans might attack soon. Extra patrols on North Ridge. Lancaster's chest tightened. They suspected. Not confirmed, but suspected. The scouts passed within 50 meters. Close enough to see faces. Close enough to hear conversation. Too close. After 10 minutes, Beckett gave all clear. Lancaster gathered the team. They suspect something. Extra security. But they're watching North Ridge. Our old position. We're good. For now, Kane muttered. For now is all we need. We go to ground, wait for nightfall, then move to secondary position. What about the shot? Hayes asked. If they're on alert, then we shoot from somewhere they won't expect. Lancaster pulled out his map. Studied terrain, options, angles. Secondary ridge. Here. 1,850 yards. Longer range. Worse angle. But they won't be watching it. Kira's eyes widened. Sir, 1850 is beyond what I've trained for. I know, but it's also beyond what they expect. Can you make it? She was quiet, honest. I don't know. Fair enough. We'll decide when we see the position. For now, we need cover. They moved into a cave system Beckett had identified from satellite imagery. Natural concealment, good fields of fire, water source. They'd wait out the day, rest, move at night. Lancaster took first watch while others tried to sleep. Kira sat beside him, unable to rest. Talk to me, he said quietly. About what, sir? Whatever's keeping you awake. Kira pulled out her father's dog tags, worn smooth from years of handling. He made a 21-47-yard shot. Everyone knows about it. It's legend. She turned the tags over in her hands. But no one talks about all the shots he missed, all the times he failed. Your father failed. Of course, everyone fails, but he didn't let failure define him. Lancaster watched her, saw the weight she carried, the legacy, the pressure. Tomorrow you'll have the weight of 7 lives in your hands, he said. That's terrifying, but it's also the highest form of respect. We're trusting you with our lives because we believe you're capable. And if I'm not, then we die together doing something that mattered. There are worse ways to go. Kira smiled, faint. You're not very good at inspirational speeches, sir. Yeah, I know, but I'm honest. Day passed slowly. Team rested in shifts. Torres monitored enemy communications, piecing together intelligence. Sir, he said quietly to Lancaster, intercepting a lot of chatter. They're expecting an attack tonight. They've positioned snipers on North Ridge. That's our primary shooting position, Hayes said. How many? Lancaster asked. 3 teams. 6 shooters total. Kane swore. They're covering the exact spot we planned, which confirms we're going to secondary position, Lancaster said. 1,850 yards. Longer shot, but they won't see it coming. Hayes shook his head. Boss, 1,850 is 3rd longest confirmed kill in history range. Kira's never attempted anything close. She has now. Lancaster stood. Beckett, scout route to secondary position. I want to know every rock, every gully, every piece of cover. We move at 2,200 hours? Sunset behind mountains, plunging the world into darkness. Temperature dropped to 20 degrees. Wind howled through peaks carrying snow and ice. Team geared up in silence, checking weapons, adjusting equipment, preparing for what might be their last mission. Kira assembled her M40A5 with practiced precision. Scope mounted, bore sighted, triple checked. She loaded 5 rounds. Federal gold medal match, 175 grain. Same ammunition her father used. Ready? Hayes asked. No, but let's go anyway. They moved out at 2,200 hours. Temperature had dropped to 15 degrees. Wind gusting to 30. Visibility less than 100 meters. Perfect for approach, terrible for shooting. Secondary position was a rocky outcrop on the far side of the valley. To reach it, they had to cross open ground for half a mile, completely exposed. If Taliban spotted them, they'd be cut down in seconds. Beckett led them across, single file, moving during wind gusts when sound was masked. It took an hour to cover half a mile, but they made it. The outcrop gave clear view of the compound. Lancaster raised binoculars. Lights blazed inside buildings. He counted over 60 fighters moving around, double the intelligence estimate. This is bad, Kane muttered. Doesn't matter. We're not fighting them. We're taking one shot and disappearing. Hayes was setting up the spotting scope. Measured distance with laser rangefinder. 1,847 yards. He paused, watching grass and snow swirl in chaotic patterns. Wind is chaos, 15 to 25 miles per hour. Variable direction. Kira settled into position beside him, prone, rifle on small bipod, body aligned perfectly behind the weapon. Her damaged hand was trembling. She gripped harder. forced it steady through will alone. This is impossible, Hayes said quietly. I know. Even your father couldn't make this shot. Not in these conditions. I know. So why are we trying? Kira looked through her scope. The compound jumped into focus. She could see fighters moving inside, dark shapes against lit windows. Somewhere in there was Al-Rahman, the man responsible for 300 deaths. Because 7 good men are counting on me, she said, and I'd rather die trying than live knowing I quit. Hayes studied her face, saw the same ice-cold determination her father had possessed. All right then, let's make history. Lancaster organized the team into defensive perimeter. Kane, Morris, and Beckett covering different approaches. Whitmore standing by with medical gear. Torres monitoring communications. Sir, Torres said suddenly, picking up encrypted transmission. Old message, 72 hours ago. He listened, face darkening. It's from Colonel Aldrich. Sent before we change plans, says American sniper team. North Ridge, 1,400 yards. Lancaster grabbed the radio. Kira, Hayes, you hear that? Copy, sir. Kira's voice was eerily calm. They're watching the wrong position. We're good. Sir, Hayes said suddenly. Movement, convoy forming, 5 vehicles. They're evacuating. Lancaster raised binoculars. Sure enough, fighters were loading into Toyota trucks, getting ready to run. Range to convoy from here, 1,900 yards, and they're moving. Moving target at 1,900 yards in variable wind. Impossible shot. Kira's voice came through the radio, steady as stone. Sir, I can make it. Corporal, that's... I know what it is, sir, but that convoy has Al-Rahman. This is our only chance. Lancaster looked at Kane. His old friend's face was grim. This was it. Do or die. All right, Lancaster said. Brennan, you have authorization. 1 shot, make it count. Kira adjusted her position. Hayes was calculating frantically. 1,900 yards. Target moving 30 miles per hour. Time of flight 3.2 seconds. You need to lead by 145 feet. Copy. Which vehicle? Intel says Al-Rahman always rides 3rd vehicle. Always. Kira found the convoy in her scope. 5 trucks racing away. 3rd truck. She could see the driver. Passenger. But which was Al-Rahman? Wind gusted 25 miles per hour, then dropped to 15, then back to 20. Wind is unstable, Hayes said. You can't... I can read it. Kira was watching snow swirl, grass bend in the distance, seeing patterns invisible to others. She ran calculations. Bullet drop, wind drift, Coriolis effect, spin drift, lead distance. Her damaged hand trembled on the stock. She shifted grip, found stability. Her breathing slowed, 60 beats per minute, then 55. She remembered her father's words from 13 years ago. When you're scared, breathe. The shot doesn't care if you're scared. Corporal, Lancaster's voice was tight. We have maybe 30 seconds before they're out of range. If you're going to shoot, shoot now. Kira's finger moved to the trigger. First stage of pull, taking up slack. She could hear her heartbeat. Slow, steady. The rhythm of life. Wind gusted. She adjusted mentally. The convoy raced across her field of view. 3rd truck, passenger window, dark shape inside. If you miss, we die. She pulled the trigger. The M40A5 roared. Recoil drove into her shoulder. Muzzle flash lit up the night like lightning. 3.2 seconds. The longest 3 seconds of Kira Brennan's life. Hayes was tracking through the spotting scope. Flight time, impact in 1, 2. 3rd truck swerved violently, crashed into a ravine, exploded in a fireball that painted the night orange and gold. Hit! Hayes' voice cracked. Jesus Christ, you hit the vehicle. But Kira wasn't celebrating, still tracking through her scope. Confirm kill. I need visual confirmation. Torres was on his tablet, accessing drone feed. I have thermal, 2 bodies in the vehicle. 1 matches Al-Rahman's height and build. He paused. His face went pale. Sir, target body is moving. He's alive. The world stopped. 1,900 yards. Perfect calculation, perfect execution, and the target survived. How? Kira's voice was hollow. You hit the driver, Hayes said, understanding dawning. Truck crashed because you killed the driver. But Al-Rahman was in the passenger seat. Crash injured him, but he's alive. Kira watched through her scope. Burning vehicle. Figure crawling out, limping, alive. She'd missed by 3 feet. Perfect shot, wrong target. Kira, Lancaster's voice was urgent. We need to move now. They know our position. They're sending fighters. But Kira wasn't listening. She was calculating. Al-Rahman was on foot, limping, moving slowly. Range was increasing as he moved away. 1,910 yards, 1,920. Wind had shifted, now coming from the north, 15 miles per hour. She could make this shot. Corporal, we don't have time. Shut up, sir. With respect. Lancaster fell silent. He saw something in Kira's eyes, the same look Ronan Brennan had before making his legendary 21-47-yard shot. Absolute focus. Complete certainty. Kira tracked the limping figure. Al-Rahman was moving uphill, away from the burning vehicle. He'd be out of sight in seconds. Range 1930 yards. No time for calculations. Had to go on instinct, on training, on 1,000 hours spent learning to read wind and distance. Her father's voice. At extreme range, you can't overthink. You have to feel the shot. She took a breath. Let it out. The crosshair settled on Al-Rahman's head, or rather, where his head would be in 3 seconds. She pulled the trigger. The bullet flew through night, 1,930 yards, over a mile, through swirling wind and thin mountain air, 3.3 seconds. Al-Rahman took 2 more limping steps. Then his head exploded. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Hit! Hayes was screaming. Holy fuck, you got him. Headshot, 1930 yards. Torres confirmed through thermal imaging. Target down. No movement. No heat signature. He's dead. Kira cleared her weapon, hands shaking now, adrenaline catching up. Kane grabbed her shoulder. Kid, that was the most insane thing I've ever seen. 2 shots, 1,900 yards, moving target. Jesus Christ, but there was no time for celebration. Contact, Beckett shouted. Fighters coming up east slope 20-plus tangos, 400 meters in closing. Lancaster made the call. We can't fight that many. Time to run. Exfil Point is 5 miles south. Everyone move. The team abandoned position, running through darkness. Behind them, gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off rocks. Taliban was closing. 400 meters, 350. They ran for their lives. 4 miles to Exfil. 3 miles, 2 miles. Taliban behind, 200 meters. Gaining. They're closing, Morrison gasped. 1 mile to go, 150 meters behind. Then Kira saw them. 25 Taliban fighters spread across the valley, blocking the path to Exfil Point. They'd been outflanked. The team skidded to a halt. Enemy behind, enemy in front, trapped. Defensive positions, Lancaster ordered. We make our stand here. They took cover behind rocks. 7 men, 1 woman, surrounded by 60-plus Taliban. Lancaster looked at his team. These men who'd trusted him, who'd followed him into hell. I'm sorry, he said. I got you killed. Shut up, boss. Kane chambered around. We knew the job was dangerous. Taliban were closing. 300 meters, 250. Kira was setting up her rifle again. Calm, focused. Brennan, what are you doing? Lancaster asked. Saving us, sir. There's too many. Watch me. 25 fighters, 800 yards, scattered across the valley floor. Mathematically impossible, even for her. But she was Ronan Brennan's daughter, and Brennan's didn't believe in impossible. She took a breath. First shot, center fighter, headshot, down. Chamber another round. 1 second. Second shot, left flank. Center mass, down, chamber. 1 second, third shot, right flank, headshot, down. Taliban fighters were scattering, diving for cover. But there was no cover in the valley. They were exposed. Fourth shot, down. Fifth shot, down. Sixth shot, down. Hayes was watching through binoculars. She's not human. She can't be human. Kira reloaded. 5 seconds, hands moving faster than thought. 7th shot, down. 8th shot, down. 9th shot, down. Taliban fighters were panicking, running, but Kira tracked them with mechanical precision. 10th shot, moving target, lead 3 feet, down. 11th shot, down. 12th shot, down. Lancaster was counting. 12 down, 15, 18. The remaining Taliban were fleeing, running back toward the compound. But Kira tracked the last 5, running uphill, moving fast. Difficult shots, 19th shot, 820 yards. Moving target, down. 20th shot, down. 21st shot, down. 22nd shot, down. 1 fighter left, running hard, 850 yards and increasing. Kira tracked him, led by 4 feet, squeezed the trigger. 22nd shot, the fighter dropped. Silence. 22 Taliban fighters down. 800 yards. Less than 30 seconds of shooting. Kira cleared her weapon, stood, legs shaking. We need to move, she said quietly. More will come. The team stared at her. Even Lancaster was speechless. Finally, Morrison broke the silence. What the fuck did we just witness? The birth of a legend, Kane said softly. They ran the last mile to Exfil. Chinook was waiting, rotors spinning. They piled in, exhausted, bleeding, alive. As the helicopter lifted off, Lancaster looked at Kira. She sat with her rifle across her lap, staring at nothing. You okay, kid? She didn't answer for a long moment. Then, I killed 22 people tonight, sir. I don't feel okay. But you saved 7. That's what matters. Is it? Lancaster didn't have an answer. He'd killed a lot of people in 36 years. It never got easier. Never felt right. You just learned to live with it. Your father would be proud, he said finally. Kira touched her father's dog tags. I hope so, sir. I really hope so. The helicopter flew south toward safety, toward home. Behind them, the Hindu Kush mountains faded into darkness. The mission was over. They'd won, but victory never felt like the movies. It felt like exhaustion and blood and the weight of 22 bodies that would follow Kira Brennan for the rest of her life. 2 weeks later, Lancaster stood in Admiral Graves' office. Debriefing had taken days. The mission was being classified, locked in vaults where most would never know it happened. Colonel Aldrich has been arrested, Graves said. Evidence of his treason is overwhelming. He'll spend the rest of his life in military prison. Lancaster nodded. 25 years of service ending in handcuffs and shame. Al-Rahman's death confirmed. DNA analysis. He's dead. Intelligence suggests his network is collapsing. You saved hundreds of lives, Thorne. Kira saved hundreds of lives. I just drove. Graves smiled. Speaking of Corporal Brennan, she's being promoted to sergeant, and she's been accepted into Naval Special Warfare Sniper School as chief instructor. First woman ever appointed to that position. She earned it. More than earned it. What she did, the 1930 kill, is now third longest confirmed kill in U.S. military history, and 22 kills in under 30 seconds. Fastest multiple target engagement ever recorded in combat. Lancaster thought about that night. Kira's ice-cold precision. Absolute focus. The way she'd saved them all. She's better than her father, he said quietly. Ronan was a legend, but Sergeant Kira Brennan, she's something else entirely. Which is why I'm offering her any assignment she wants, Graves continued. Delta, CIA, even a training position here. What do you think she'll choose? I don't know. Let's ask her. Kira entered the office, dress uniform, looking young again, innocent almost. Hard to believe this was the same woman who'd killed 22 enemy fighters in 30 seconds. Sergeant Brennan, Graves said, congratulations on your promotion. Thank you, sir. You have your choice of assignments. Where do you want to go? Kira glanced at Lancaster, then back to Graves. Sir, I want to stay here, as instructor, teaching the next generation of snipers. Graves raised an eyebrow. You could go anywhere, do anything. Why teach? Because my father taught me. Commander Lancaster taught me. Now it's my turn to teach others. She straightened. Women are going to come through this program. They'll face doubt, skepticism, hatred. They'll need someone who's been there, someone who can show them it's possible. Lancaster felt something swell in his chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. That's a good answer, Sergeant, Graves said. Request approved. You start next month. After Kira left, Graves turned to Lancaster. You thinking about retirement still? I was, but now. Lancaster looked out the window at the obstacle course. Fresh candidates struggling through morning PT. Maybe I'll stick around a few more years. Make sure Brennan has backup. Good, because we need you both. World's not getting any safer. 3 months later, Kira stood before her first class. 23 men, 3 women, all staring at her. Some skeptical, some curious, all wondering if she was the real deal. My name is Sergeant Kira Brennan, she said. I hold the third longest confirmed kill in U.S. military history. 1,930 yards. Combat conditions. Moving target. Shocked silence. I also hold the record for fastest multiple target engagement. 22 kills in 30 seconds, she paused. Let that sink in. I'm going to teach you everything I know. How to read wind, how to calculate ballistics, how to make shots you think are impossible. She held up her damaged right hand, the compression sleeve visible. But more than that, I'm going to teach you that excellence has nothing to do with perfection. It's about adaptation, about refusing to quit, about taking the shot when everyone says it can't be done. She looked at the 3 women in the class. You're going to face doubt. You're going to face people who say you don't belong. Prove them wrong, not with words, with performance. One woman raised her hand. Sergeant, how do we deal with the pressure, the expectations? Kira touched her father's dog tags. Pressure is a privilege, she said. Voice strong, clear. It means someone trusts you enough to give you the hard jobs. Most people never get that trust. She paused. My father taught me that. He also taught me broken things can still cut. Sometimes they cut deepest of all. She picked up an M40A5 rifle. Now let's get to work. We have a lot to learn. As the class moved to the firing line, Lancaster watched from his office window. He'd stayed on like he promised, making sure Kira had backup. But she didn't need it. Sergeant Kira Brennan was a legend in her own right now. Not because of her father's name, because of what she'd done. The shot that saved 7 lives. The shot that changed everything. And as she taught the next generation of warriors how to breathe, how to read wind, how to make the impossible possible, Lancaster knew one thing for certain. Some records were made to be broken. Some legends were born in fire. And broken things, sometimes they cut deepest of all.